welcome to another episode of Shooting
the Shit with Rachel Ann
and Neal Young. So we're talking all things real estate photography business growth, mindset, and getting it done. Here come your favorite true entrepreneurs, Rachel Ann and Neal Young, shooting the shit.
I have a ferret on the podcast. Like if we're kind of in a slump, like what kind of things do you do?
Talking about a boob light.
Straddling a power line.
Nice photo.
Ooh, I need that.
I'm like red right now because I'm embarrassed. I go like this. I love it.
Come in.
Sure, use your podcast voice.
You know, over here, I'm pitting out.
Drone's like flipping to the ground.
That's a great callback.
Chit-chatting.
Is that what you call that?
Hey!
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Shooting the Shit with Rachel Ann and Neal Young. Today, we're going to talk about virtual staging, you know, why you would do virtual staging, how to find a company, what to charge, how to sell it to your clients, and how to market it. So kind of the ins and outs of virtual staging, and hopefully it'll be a great add-on product that you can add to your lineup. So Neal, how are you?
I'm good. I'm doing good. Yeah, no, this is a good topic too, because even for me, I've only dabbled in virtual staging. On occasion, I do it and I send it out for clients here and there, but it's not something that I do really on a regular basis. It's not something that's really come up huge for me yet, but it's starting to kind of trickle in more and more people asking about it. So I think this will be a lot of helpful information for me as well as anybody else kind of on that, in that same area where maybe they did it one here or there, but didn't really fully tap into it yet, let's say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think a lot more people are just understanding that it's an option, it's available. So a lot more agents are asking for it, I'm finding, which is great. They're like, oh, you do virtual staging. Great. You know, I have an empty bedroom that's not going to be staged. Can we virtually stage it? I'm like, yeah, easy peasy. Cool. Yeah. So let's start with why you would do virtual staging. So Neal, any guesses on why we do virtual staging? Don't look at the notes. We have
I'm not.
Got to follow an outline.
I can't look at the show notes and look at you at the same time. My brain is not that great at that kind of thing. No, so I have to do one or the other. It's either just show notes and you'll just see me reading. Or as I'm doing my eyes back and forth when I'm reading like a terrible teleprompter reader. So the first things that come to my mind is if you got a vacant property, right? You know, there's nothing in it. Or if you got, you know, this is where it's happened more often for me is you've got a house that's fine, but you've got one room that's just horrendous, for example, that doesn't match the rest of the feel of the home. But that's my answer. Am I right, Rach? Or am I close?
You're right on point, Neal. You're right on point. Yeah. So obviously if the house is empty, it's a great opportunity to virtually stage it. So obviously like staging a home is always better because they're going to see it in the pictures and then they're going to see it in person. But there's a lot of sellers that don't want to pay for staging, or the realtors don't offer staging as part of their marketing package. So a good alternative to that is virtual staging, which is a lot cheaper and just easier for everyone involved.
And I think that sometimes, and I don't know how many photographers know this, if they don't deal with the staging yet, or they don't deal with that directly. I was surprised to hear recently how expensive the staging is to, you know, to have. I've heard here and there, but, you know, I figured it was a couple $100, like, you know, bringing a photographer to come in, but it can be thousands of dollars to have a physical stager.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. So we had our first listing. I'll just tell you this story because I was like freaked out when I got the quote for the staging. So we had our first listing and I told them, you know what, we'll cover the staging, no problem, you know, thinking it might be $1,200, you know, and I thought we'll just do a partial stage. So we'll do living, dining, and then the primary bedroom. And I got a quote for a partial, and the cheapest quote I got was $2,300. And the most expensive was $4,300. And then a full stage started at $4,000 and went up to $6,500. This was an 1,800 square foot home. Like it wasn't huge. So
that's
anywhere
for 1,800. Yeah. Wow.
I mean, I'm in Seattle, so I think our stagers charge a premium price, but I don't know what it's like in your market. But yeah, so it's anywhere. And like big houses are 10 grand to stage. I mean, it's expensive and for good reason. I mean, I know a couple stagers personally that I've become friends with, and it's quite a task to stage a home. You have to think about it. You have to have movers to move the furniture in. First, you have to have the inventory and you have to store it somewhere. So they have a big warehouse with a ton of furniture, accessories, rugs, everything. And then they've got to have a management system to keep track of all the inventory, like what's in, what's out. And then they have to have movers who put it in the house. It's going to sit there for a month. So they have to have enough inventory to stage all the other homes and keep them occupied for a month. And then you've got the move out stage. Like either they want to move that staging to another unit or they want to just pull it because the house sold. So that's a whole nother set of movers that have to come in and move everything. And then they have to put everything back, inventory it all. I mean, it's quite a production for stagers. They work really hard.
Yeah,
So
that's a lot of overhead too, with all that
Yeah.
storage and all that. That's got to be expensive, and have all that product is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are some companies out there. It's like a kind of like a stage share program. I don't know what it's called in Seattle, but basically it's a big warehouse where you can lease out your furniture. So if you were a stager, you could put your furniture in the catalog, and then a whole group of stagers can choose from the bundle of furniture that all these stagers have contributed, right? So you can rent someone else's table. If you're in there, you're like, oh, I like this table, this will work perfect. You can rent that from the warehouse. So it's a good way to not have to have a warehouse, but at the same time, there's not always things available. So it's kind of one of those, like, I don't know. So it's interesting. The staging business is very interesting, but it's a lot of work. And from what I've learned, it's a bit of a headache with the particularness of clients and the turnover of employees. And it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
so
sure.
it's not cheap.
And then in comparison, for doing the virtual staging, right? So if you're virtually staging a house, what do you find is like a ballpark for a cost for images that you're charging the client?
Yeah. So we charge $35 an image to have it virtually staged, and I pay $20 to have it done. So I'm making $15 per image. And on average, our clients are staging between 3 to 5 rooms, or 3 to 5 images. So, and it's usually like if the whole house is vacant, they'll do like 3 of the living, dining, and then 1 bedroom, maybe 2 bedrooms.
Right.
So, and then if they do a full house, it's anywhere from like 8 to 12 images. So
Okay.
we had another listing that was vacant, and the owner straight up said, we're not going to stage it. We're not paying for that. And I was like, neither are we. So we ended up doing the virtual staging, and I think I did like 12 images on that. I just picked the best angles and it worked great. And the client was blown away. He was like, wow, this looks so good. I can't believe that's my house, which was cool to hear.
And it does make a big difference when you're looking. It's hard to tell when you're looking at empty rooms. It's really hard to visualize,
Exactly
what that space is like. Even the size, putting the furniture in there kind of helps you visualize and figure out, oh, that's a big room or that's a tiny room. It's really hard to tell.
Right. And it just helps you envision yourself living there and to understand kind of how some living rooms, you see them and they're kind of a weird layout. And you're like, how would I even decorate that living room? Like, I don't know where my couch would go. How would it work? So to have it already staged just gives you ideas of how you're going to bring your own stuff into that space.
Yeah.
So, and I think it creates more of an emotional connection to the home when you see it put together as a whole. It's just cleaner. It just looks better. It's a better presentation, right? So, and we are in the marketing business, so we need to be helping our clients to market their listings so they look beautiful.
I've got a whole new business I just thought of.
Oh, great. Please do share.
They really need to virtually stage only, and then somebody probably does this, virtually stage with furniture that is actually all for sale. So if you bought that house, you could literally buy that whole setup, move in.
That is a genius idea, Neal. That's $1 million idea right there. I like
That's
that.
right. Because that's me. I wouldn't know how to decorate this, but if I saw it, I go, well, that looks great. Can I have that?
Yeah. Well, you've seen the listings where they're like, all the furniture is for sale in the house. You can buy it furnished or buy any of the furniture, which I think is cool. And you can use Matterport and use Matterport tags to mark the furniture and say it's for sale, like add a link. It's pretty cool.
That's really smart. Yeah,
I
that's
never
cool.
use the tags, but you can.
I've never done any of that, but that's cool. Yeah,
I've used them for one client, like when I first started doing it, and I was like, this is really cool, but this takes a lot of time. Not something I'm going to advertise that I can do because this is not worth my time.
Exactly.
Even though I could charge, but no.
Yeah.
So how do we find these companies that do this virtual staging? Main way is to ask your editor. A lot of your photo editors do virtual staging. Or you can go on the Facebook groups. There's a lot of groups for real estate photography and just ask, do you do virtual staging? I would encourage you to ask to see their catalog of furniture so you can see what it looks like. The first company I used for virtual staging, I would just send them the photo and I'd say, they'd give me an option. Do you want modern, contemporary, farmhouse? What are some other ones? Traditional. What style of furniture do you want? And you'd tell them, and then they would just stage it and you'd get it back. And what I found is a lot of the furniture that they would use, since they're overseas and they're servicing clients all over not just the United States, but all over the world. So the furniture in their catalogs is geared more towards other countries. So it's furniture that we wouldn't see here in the United States. So it just didn't really match with the style of homes here. So I asked my editor to send me the catalog, and I said, is it okay if I choose which furniture goes in which room? And he said, yeah. So I have a Dropbox folder that I also share with my team. And we actually had a team meeting this morning about virtual staging. So this is perfect. Yeah. But yeah, so I basically just pick the furniture myself and send it off to him, and it looks great. And that way too, if there's like artwork on the wall that I don't like, there's one living room set that I love, but the artwork is like these creepy, it's like whitewashed. It looks like a painting, and there's these two faces and they look like they're melting. Like they're super creepy. I just hate them. I look at them like, you have to change the art. So I'll like send him a picture of that set of furniture and put a little X over the art and say, different art, please. And he always comes out with just something that is more neutral, that matches, that doesn't have weird faces on it.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. And I've never seen the catalogs. I know that they exist, that you can, go through these kind of, I didn't know they were together that much, that they were kind of like a piece together. That makes sense that they would be, that they're in the same kind of style and whatnot, but I didn't realize that, because I've had that where the handful of times that I've done stitching, one of them came back and I liked the way they did everything in the room, but the paintings were they were just kind of tacky, I'd say. So I was like, everything was fine, but the taste just didn't match in the painting. So I was like, can we just swap those out for something else? I think they were like weird, it just matched, like weird horses or something, and it didn't go with anything else. It was like, all you're thinking about is, why are there horse paintings? You know what I mean?
Your eye just goes straight to the horses. You're like, that looks scary.
So, but outside of that, they did a good job. And I've like I said, I've only done a handful of time with the editors I use, but they usually do pretty good job. So I haven't had to be too particular about it, but it's a good thought to know that we could say, hey, can I see the catalog and choose some stuff? That's a great idea.
Yeah, totally. Box Brownie is another company that does virtual staging. So does Photo Up, is a photo editing company. They do virtual staging as well. I don't know what they charge. I think Box Brownie is a little more expensive than 20 an image, but it's a good option. They do a good job. And then if you don't want to offer it and your clients ask, you can send them to Box Brownie. That's one of the main places that people will go to get virtual staging that I've heard of, my clients mentioned.
That's a big one. I've heard of them too, and I checked them out too. But when I was trying to make a profit on top of it, I remember thinking the rates was already kind of high, that I couldn't probably mark up too much for my market. Anyway, it might be different depending where you're at. So
yeah, I did have an agent reach out to me. I did virtual staging, and he was like, you charge too much for virtual staging. It's way too much. And I was like, sorry, like you can go somewhere else. I'm not changing my pricing. Like, I have to make something off of this.
Yeah.
So yeah. So with an average profit margin of $15 per image, and we're doing 3 to 5, we're making anywhere from like 45 to like, what is that, $75 per job. And I think we probably do like 2 to 3 a week of virtually staged jobs. So it's a decent amount of money throughout a month. It's like close to $1,000 profit.
Yeah.
It's not
and
bad.
It's an add-on that you don't have to do anything else differently in the field. So it's, it's like as long as they want it, it's just like money in your pocket. So that's pretty cool. I mean, you got to do a little bit of work just wrangling it and saying what you want, but outside of that, it's a good gig to make some extra cash where you might not be making that money right now.
Yeah, it takes
money on the table.
Exactly. It takes me about 10 minutes to put the order in. So I'll just go through. The agents will ask, I ask them, like, do you want to pick the furniture, or do you want to get your photos back and then pick the furniture? Because if you let me pick it, you'll get it back with your photos the next day. If you want to pick it when you get your photos back the next day, then you won't have the virtual staging until the following day. So, and a lot of them are like, oh no, you just pick. I just want them back tomorrow. I'm like, great. So I'll just go in and pick the best angle for the living room, dining, and bedroom. And then I'll go through the catalog, figure out what furniture matches that style of home, or what matches that current, furniture that they have in the home. And then just send it in a message to my editor and say, for image 1, 2, 3, please use bedroom 5, 6, 7, out of the catalog. So, gotcha. And it's great. So it takes about 10 minutes to order. It's not bad.
Now, when you're offering that to your agents, are you offering that you're just offering that they choose the angle, or they also get to choose the style of furniture?
I don't give them an option on style. They can pick the image that they want staged.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
I was
don't,
going to say that would be a lot to back and forth probably if you opened up
yeah.
that can of worms, right?
Yeah. Well, I was working with my manager this week on this, and we were trying to figure out a way to make this streamlined, because a lot of times shoots aren't uploaded until 10 o'clock at night, and sent to our editors. And then they're like, oh, I realize there's virtual staging, and I'm in bed, and I'm like, computer's shut down, and I have to hop out of bed and go order virtual staging. I'm like, this is obnoxious. Why am I doing this? So what if we had the idea to put the catalog on my website, so that when the order is put in, the agents go in and actually pick the furniture and submit that with their order, what furniture they want for the virtual staging. And then
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, how many agents are actually gonna do that? Like, and for me to communicate that's what you need to do, it's just like one more thing that I just feel like most of them don't care enough to go through that step.
Yeah, I wonder about that. I'm sure there's like definitely some that would love it because they're so, particular, but I don't know if
Right.
that's the majority. Yeah.
I don't think it is. I don't think, and I feel
Yeah.
like it's a disaster waiting to happen, because if they can see all the furniture, they might, I don't know. I just don't want to give them that much control over it. I feel like the way I've been doing works, I've only had maybe 2 or 3 clients that have been, well, I've had one that was very unhappy with the staging. And so I sent her the catalog and I said, okay, you can pick the furniture. Like, let me know what you want in the bedrooms. Or in the living room. You should have seen the email. It was like a book, Neal. It
Oh,
was,
yeah. Right.
please take the plant from this entry table and put it on the dining room table, and put this piece of art from this set, and this couch from this set, and this chair from this set, and this rug. And then if you can turn it this way, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, it was crazy. And I'm like, how am I going to communicate this to my editor? Like, English is his second language. I literally
Yeah.
copied and pasted and sent it to him, and he freaking nailed it. I was like, yeah, my
Wow.
editor is the best. I was like, thank
That's
you.
amazing.
I
No,
know.
yeah. Yeah, that's kind of my fear, is that like just that can of worms. But I've had the same thought about music for video, for example, that like maybe I should create a gallery and they can choose with the song. And I'm like, but I'm like fixing a problem I don't have. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Once in a while, somebody's like, I don't really like that song. Can we change it? And we change it, but
Yeah.
it's not the
Not
majority of
very
the
often.
time. So I'm like, am I just causing more problems by, and then I've squashed it.
Good for you. Good call.
Yeah,
Neal. Good call.
yeah.
Yeah. So on what to charge, I mean, obviously do your research in your market, see what other people are charging, and then figure out how much it's going to cost you. And you want to make at least $5 an image off of it, if not 10 or 15. Like, I pay 20. I used to do it for 30 an image. And last year I
Yeah.
raised the price to 35, just because I, raised my prices all around. I thought it's a good chance to do that. So, and most people don't complain, honestly.
Yeah. I've been charging 30 as well. And it's just, and it's not a huge thing for me right now, but if they need it, I'm like, it's $30 an image. And sometimes they're like, oh yeah, that's a lot now. And they don't want to do it. Or sometimes it's like, yeah, okay, great. No problem. So I leave it up to them. It is what it is. I got to make some money off of it. And it's, like you said, they charge a fair amount because they spend a lot of time doing those. Actually, it's not the easiest thing to do well. So
Yeah.
it's got to cost something.
Exactly. I actually had a company reach out to me, and they were like, hey, we have this virtual staging software where you stage it yourself, and it's really easy to do. And it was I think it was $7 an image. So I tried it, and I staged a room myself, and I was like, that was so easy. It was like drag and drop the furniture you want. It was cool because I could
Cool.
pick it. And I was like, this is so fun. Like, I feel like I'm a stager. Like, I love decorating. This is great. And then I went to export the image, and it took like 35 minutes to render. And that was just one image. And I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. This is going to take way too long. I can't do this. So I scratched that. But it was cool. I mean, that's an option that's out there. I don't remember what it's called, but it's out there.
That's really cool.
Kind of do it yourself staging. So you want to consider your time and the effort that you're going to put into picking these images, communicating with the client. There is extra time involved. So make sure you're up charging enough to cover that time. So I would say at least a 25% markup on it, if not 50, if you can. All right. So how I sell it to my clients. So I always let them know that a staged home is best. If you can stage it, if you can afford to stage it, if your sellers will stage it, encourage them to do that, because that's better than virtual staging. But virtual staging is a great second option, if the funds just aren't there to stage it. And I always say that up front, like first, just to kind of break down that barrier and kind of build some trust with the client. So when they hear you be honest about it and you're like, look, stage it if you can stage it, that's better. Like I have their best interest at heart always. I don't sell my services just to upsell someone. I sell them because they need it, you know? And so I think by prefacing it that way, like stage it if you can, it kind of breaks down that wall. And then it opens them up to listening to you more, right? And like taking what you're saying and really trusting you.
Yeah, for me, it's only ever come up in scenarios where it was needed for a room or a couple of rooms or something like that. It's I've never had yet somebody that wanted the whole thing staged. But so when you bring it up and sell it to your clients, are you bringing this up in some preliminary information when you get a new client, or is it just as it comes up as needed kind of thing?
Yeah. So a lot of times when I have a new client, we're on the phone talking about it, I'll tell them we do virtual staging. And if they want to inquire more about it, they will, and we'll talk about it then. But a lot of times it's on site. You know, if they have an empty bedroom and they're like, oh, or I'll bring it up and say, hey, I know there's an empty bedroom. Did you want to virtually stage it? And then they'll say, oh, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So,
And I've mentioned that too on occasions where it was like, you got this one room and they're like, oh, there's so much, like they're like whispering to you, I don't know what to do. There's a lot of stuff in that room. So I guess just take the shot. And I'll be like, well,
yeah.
you know, you have the option that we could stage that room if you want to virtually stage it, you know, if you want to, and it'll match everything else in the house and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But that's really how it's come up for me is just in those scenarios. Or one time it was a tenant who just, they didn't want to move. Right. So I think they literally tried to do anything they could to make it look horrible. It was bad. And it was, so we staged that part because everything else looked nice. And it was terrible to have this room that was just like, oh, you know, so we staged that. But yeah.
So on top of staging, I forgot to bring this up earlier, there's also junk removal or like item removal.
Right.
So if a room, and I tell my clients this too, hey, if you have a room that's full of stuff that you don't want in there, we can remove that. It's $35 an image to do it, but it's a heck of a lot easier than trying to move all that furniture yourself. You know, it's worth the $35 and having to clean out that room and then me virtually stage it when we can just do it all for $70 for that one room. Done. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And same thing too with like sometimes exterior stuff. There's like something that it would take so much longer to hustle a big pile of this stuff in the yard somewhere else and just say, you know, we could just, the 3 images in front, we could just virtual that right out of there. It's just going to cost a little bit. And then we don't have to all stand here running wheelbarrows around and
right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and a lot of that junk removal, like we'll do ourselves, but if it's something that's like, I always tell my agents, like I need to be able to copy and paste from somewhere. Like if there's a signpost and a sign that's covering the stairs and all like the whole portion of the siding or something that's unique to the rest of the house, it's going to be really hard to, I need something to copy from to replace that. So, and they're like, oh, that makes sense. So just like explaining it, and even the junk removal, like the editors that do it, they run into the same problem. You'll see little mistakes where there's like a repeated pattern of the grass or like, you know, you can tell it looks blurred or something. It's just, they just didn't do the best job. And that's just because it's something that literally can't be removed. So you have to keep that in mind too, when you talk with junk removal, like think about where they're going to have to copy and paste to make that stairway look like there's nothing in front of it.
Perfect example of like a junk removal is we just had this one. I sent them out because I tried editing one. I'm like, nope, it's gonna be too hard to make this look good. It was one of those pods in the driveway, which if it was just sitting on grass and a grass background or just a simple tree background, easy enough, it's gone. But when it's overlapping part of the garage lines, you know, and then some like rock stuff in the background, then it's like, no, you can't just go copy and it's fine. It's going to take a lot of work of cloning this little piece and cloning this piece here. And no, I'm good.
Copy, paste, transform, flip horizontal, adjust it.
Tweak it. No, it's like, nope, this one's getting sent out. Yeah.
Advanced Photoshop skills. I've been down a couple of rabbit holes of Photoshop skills in my day.
I've been down a few as well.
Okay, so if you're in a house and you see a vacant room, this is a great opportunity for you to open that door and start talking about virtual staging. So always bring it up with clients when you're there. Even if they're not there, you can always call or text them and say, hey, did you want to do virtual staging? I noticed the home's vacant. We can easily do 3 to 5 images and it looks great. Like you can't even tell it's fake furniture. And you got to preface that because I think a lot of agents think, oh, virtual staging looks bad because they've seen bad virtual staging. but you have to reassure them my virtual staging is really good. I always say I hand pick the furniture so it looks like furniture that you would see in houses in our area. So it matches our current styles. And I think that helps them too, to trust and know it's going to
Yeah,
look.
and if you have a great client that doesn't do that service currently and you want to wow them and you don't have good examples of that yet to show new clients, then why not invest in a couple angles, send them to the editor, a little money out of your pocket, but now you got something for your portfolio to say, this is what it looks like. And because that just happened, a client asked me, oh, do you have an example of what your staging looks like? And I had just done one and it looked great. So I just sent them two different houses, like 2 or 3 different rooms just for examples. And they were like, oh, awesome. Okay, great. We can use you for that house then because we want to stage a bunch of it. So
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to have that in your back pocket.
Totally. Yeah. So explain or just show them how good it looks. That's
There you go.
So another thing that I use to sell it to clients is I tell them people tour a home 1 or 2 times. They'll actually walk through the home physically and see it. But how many times do they actually look at the photos? Like some people look at the photos up to 100 times online before they buy a house. People are like when I just bought a house and I was obsessed. I'm looking at it over and over and over again, right? So if it's virtually staged, they're going to look at those photos way more times than actually physically walking through the house. So obviously real staging is better because when they get there, they're a little disappointed that it's not staged, but they still can get an idea. So I always tell them that and they're like, oh, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. So you can explain the benefits of it being staged, like we talked about just a few minutes ago, that it creates that emotional connection. It helps them envision their stuff in the home and how the flow of the house works and the layout, and what the rooms could be used for. And then I gathered some facts from a local stager here in Seattle. And she said out of a 2021 survey of 4,600 properties, 73% sold over list price. And staged homes sold an average of 40K over asking and sold 9 days faster than not staged homes. So, that's 73% sold over list price. That's crazy. So I asked her, I was like, do you think this would apply to virtual staging? She goes, well, probably not as high as these numbers are, but she said, I'm sure it does a little bit for sure. So, there's those stats that you can throw around too. I would like to do more research on virtual staging and see if there are stats on virtual staging for homes.
But I think definitely the first thing a lot of people are going to see is online, right? So if you get more eyeballs on it, you're going to get more people interested, potentially more bids, so potentially higher bids, right? So it would make sense that most of that applies. Of course, when you go to the tour in person, it's not going to be staged, but you're already there. And I think when you're there in person, it's a lot easier to imagine the space than photos are really hard being two-dimensional to understand the space. So I would, if I had to guess, I would say that it definitely would fall in line. The majority of that I think would still apply.
Yeah. And it's really important for clients or for brokers to get people out to the house. They're like, the photos are great, but we need to get people out there. We want them to walk through it because that's when they fall in love with the home, and make offers. So you can collaborate with stagers with this virtual staging. So here in Seattle, it rains a lot in the wintertime. And a lot of our homes in Seattle have rooftop decks. And that outdoor furniture that they put out with all the pillows and cushions just gets weathered in the winter. Like it gets destroyed. So a lot of stagers in this area won't even offer outdoor furniture in the wintertime just because it ruins their furniture. So they need us so they can suggest to the broker, hey, Focused Media Collective does virtual staging. If you want to use them, they do a great job. They also do great photos. So she plugs me, right? And then if they use me, then I give her, if they use me for the first time, new client, then I'll give her the photos for free for her to use in her portfolio or something like that. We were just texting today about this, literally just today. So this will probably be happening in the next couple of weeks, but I think it's a great collaboration. We already collaborate with just clients in general, so it's great. It's cool to work with your local stagers and get to know those people in your industry. So
that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So how to market it? I think we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but obviously have your before and after pics. You can add them to your website. So on my website, focusedmediacollective.com, you can go see an example of what I've done. It's a little slider where you can slide. You can see the house vacant and then you slide the little slider and it shows it virtually staged. So, and that is available on Wix and WordPress and all of, you can have that little plugin on all of the website builders. I think it's available. You can make reels and show the before and after through like a little slideshow reel. You can add text over the reels and, add all the stats about how a staged home sells faster, just kind of explaining how it works through the reel, just really explaining the process and trying to break down some of those barriers of why people wouldn't want to use virtual staging, right?
Yep.
And then you can add it onto your order form. So if you use some kind of order form, whatever, you can put it on there so they're seeing it. And then they might be like, "Hey, I didn't know you did virtual staging. Sweet." Right.
So if you haven't heard our HD Photo Hub episode, which is not out yet or is coming out, we have one
I
where we
think
talk
it's coming
about.
out before this. It's the
Yeah, we
next
don't
one
think
to
we edited
launch.
it yet. But for example, we talk a lot about that order form and stuff like that. But one of the things you do is add images. And I was going to mention that too, Rachel, is that I don't have it in my order form yet just because I haven't pushed it and I haven't done a ton of it yet. But obviously to have that icon there as they're scrolling down, like, then obviously, even if they weren't looking for it, they see it pop up. They know you do it for the future. And if you've got an image there that shows how good it looks, then you've already answered all those questions before they even knew to ask. So that would be cool.
Exactly. And then the last one is just to talk about it. Like talk to your clients about it. Let them know that you do it when you're there on site. Talk about it on your Tip Tuesday. Whatever, whatever you can do to broadcast it.
Yep.
You got to talk about a business to have a business. That's my one big advice.
We should talk about our business, Rachel.
Oh my gosh, let's talk about the podcast. So guys, if you haven't left a review, please go leave a review for us. 5 stars are great. And follow us on Instagram. It's Shooting the Shit with Rach and Neal. And we're on YouTube as well.
That's right. We are on YouTube, and we'd love to, reviews, likes, any of this stuff. We definitely would love it.
Yes.
So please do. If you're enjoying any of this, please do. Yeah.
Yes. Do you have anything to add, Neal?
No, I don't know. I mean, geez, I just think that if you're not doing it yet, like I haven't done a ton of it yet, it's one of those things that eventually, what now? Well, maybe work on that to start getting a little bit more income every month. Why not?
Heck yeah. And it makes you more of a one-stop shop.
That's right.
One less thing they have to worry about and do.
Exactly. Yep. Solving problems for them.
Exactly.
All right. Cool.
Well, you guys go be great.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.